Can I get everyone, please, to move to the front and take their seats? Those joining the panel, if you could just take your front seat in the front seat.
Yes, you can.
Not on the red chairs yet.
Oh, not on the red chairs.
Hi.
And if you want to say hi to people in Teams, feel free to go up to the camera and wave at them.
Do you have your questions asked?
I do, they're just at the back of the room, but I do have them. Thank you very much, Dad.
Can everyone on the online meeting hear nice and loud?
Giles says hello, Manu.
I saw it.
Hey, Giles.
Charles.
Awesome, thanks, Bex.
Oh, there's a few people online. Hi, everybody online. Great that we can run these hybrid events.
Look at them
Welcome.
all online.
I'm not running today's event. I'm just saying hi. I'm leaving this on in Cam's head. It's great to be able to actually sit in the audience for a change. Always a plus.
No.
It's my drink.
Good afternoon, evening, everyone. Cam just handed me the mic and I said, what am I doing with this? My name is Vinny Sykes. My pronouns are he, him. I am a success manager within Marketing Cloud at Salesforce. And today I get the joy of being MC for this fabulous event we're running. So welcome everybody online and in the Spark building today. So we are talking today around gender, diversity, equity, and inclusivity. So we've done the hello. Cam is going to take us through a karakia. We're going to have a few slides setting the scene. We're then going to do a panel discussion and I will introduce you to the panelists. And then there's going to be a bit of Q&A for those online. We will have up a URL that you can go in to put in questions if you want to and make it as interactive as possible. And then Cam has requested that at 6 o'clock for those in person, there will be more drinks than the ones we already had. So I think he will need it after the day that he's had from the sounds of it. So any questions before I continue? So Cam, would you like to take everyone through the karakia?
Yeah, kia ora. Just sort of be in the spirit of Matariki and just great overall etiquette to open with karakia. So I was kia hora te nirino, kia whakapapa pau namu te moana, hei hua rahi mā tātou i te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou i a tātou katoa, tuie tākia. I just want to touch on the words there. It's always good to have a look at what the English translation of those words are. So as you can see, it's may peace be widespread. In these days and times, it's really important, especially with places like Ukraine. May the sea be like greenstone, a pathway for us all this day. Let us show respect for each other, for one another, bind us all together. Special mentions to the amazing MC from Salesforce, Vinny, and for the swag that they have provided today. And shout out to Spark for hosting. Yay. Yay.
So if there is an emergency or the fire alarm goes out, is it Victoria Park? Victoria Park is the meeting point. Bathrooms are down there and to the left, just by the lifts, if you need it. Behind the sushi place, yes, past the seats that go down there. Anything else?
Rat test at the back of anyone.
Oh yeah, and there's rat test at the back, and there's also Salesforce masks as well. And as you mentioned, the swag, there is Outforce swag today, which we have as well, which is t-shirts, bandanas. We even have very limited edition Pride Outforce stickers involving the rainbow, cloud, and Astro unicorn, as well as there might be some other things in there as well. So today's about sharing and learning. We're all on the journey from a learning perspective, particularly when it comes to equality, diversity, and equity, and inclusivity. So this is a safe space. There's no stupid questions, because I know even personally in my journey as a queer man that I've asked many stupid questions that may seem obvious to those around me, but at the time it wasn't. We're here to support each other and speak to the leaders if you need help. Cam, Joanne, who's there as well, and our panelists who I will introduce you to, Manu and Ramon as well. So, as this is Salesforce user group, I'll put a couple of Salesforce slides. I think this one for me grounds us as an organisation. So these are our 5 values. We did used to have 4, and we actually added our 5th one last year. Or this year, pretty much, yeah. Recently. So our 5th one we've just added is sustainability. But the 4 key values that we've always had as an organisation is trust, customer success, innovation, and equality. And equality for us as an organisation was the main reason I joined Salesforce in the first place, and actually one of the main reasons that I've come back recently to join Salesforce. But we do really live our values from that perspective. And we've had a long journey as far as these are all of our employee resource groups that we have. So our first one was our Women's Network, which was set up in 2008, all the way through to last year, Parent Force was set up. So we have Outforce, which is our LGBTQIA communities, Bold Force, which is our Black Lives Matter, for want of a better term, group, Latino Force, Asia Pacific Force, Earth Force, and all of these are organised by employees, supported by the organisation, funded by the organisation if need be. So it's pretty crazy and awesome. And the intersectionality there is quite powerful. So Faith Force was actually set up, ironically enough, by a friend of mine in Sydney who said, I would really like to organise an employee resource group to do with my religion, but I feel like I can't do that. And him and I had this big conversation. I'm like, if I can bring my true authentic self to work, then you should be allowed to bring your true authentic self to work. And Mike actually tells a story about that as why he set up Faith Force, and it's gone from strength to strength. So it's all about how we can allow each other to be our true authentic selves. So Cam's going to jump up and talk about a couple of questions before showing a promo video for a fabulous piece of work that Ramon has been hard at work on.
Just before we jump into the video, those that aren't too familiar with Te Reo Māori or some of the terms that will be mentioned, takatapui, and this is going to be a really simplified version, so don't hate on me if I don't get 100%. I would love to go into the history of what takatapui means, but really brief, short history. Pre-colonialism, it was a term used for two lovers of the same gender. Reclaiming that post-colonialism, it's now been used by the rainbow community from all parts of that community. So not just of the same gender, but those that are gender diverse. Rangatahi means young people or the people coming after us when we get old and die.
You nailed it.
Yeah, I nailed it. So I'm going to play a promo video of a show that's airing at the moment on Māori television that Ramon has been directing, and it's pretty amazing. There is also some really interesting stats within this video as well.
I get to be powerful, playful.
Can you hear it on the Teams chat?
Try on moves, looks, eras, styles.
Sorry for the ads, team.
Excuse me.
You don't have premium?
It's not YouTube.
Oh.
So we're not celebrating her luscious skin?
Or Amiga.
Hello, my name is Aniwa. I identify as takatapui, and this is my first introduction into the LGBTIQ+ community here in Aotearoa. I'm on a mission to learn more about who we are, what our history is, and what makes us tick, or tick off. I'm going to meet some incredible pioneers who've helped pave the way, as well as some groundbreaking rangatahi who are carrying the torch into the future.
The days of
people speaking for others are coming to an end.
It's like fighting alongside the most marginalized.
I'm going to be doing things I have never done before.
What would it mean for your clients to deliver a positive result for HIV?
And it's all in the name of education. Because if my visibility can help the safety and acceptance of one queer person, then girl, it will all be worth it. This reality really freaks me out. It's made me think about my own Tucker journey and what I can do to bring some awareness to the queer experience. I want to be able to help other Rangatahi become more educated while highlighting the issues that we face as a community. So, I'm going to share my Tucker journey with you and turn my visibility into action.
We need to have the voices at the table of whom that are representing. I want to be able to, imagine little me seeing, older me in the space and being like, I can do that. I'm allowed to be free.
Well, first of all, we have an institutional goal. So I just want to go through that experience. Another thing with that, I just want to be able to sort of picture it onto my mind and sort of what to expect from it and stuff, which makes the integration a little bit clearer.
I work at Rainbow Youth. I'm the executive director there. The Rainbow Youth provides support, information, resources and advocacy for queer, gender diverse, tangatapu and intersex young people across Aotearoa.
Kia ora. How are you? Great, nice to meet you. So the Falcons is a gay and inclusive rugby club. History tells us that there's been homophobia in rugby. That's why it's important. It's important to promote the game as a game, a space for community. Is to give people the confidence to go, hey, this is who I am, I play rugby.
There's so much stigma on brown people in general, and then even more when you're queer. When really, we're just young people that want to survive. We're just trans people that see ourselves outside of the stereotype of womanhood.
It's great to know that there's support out there in the community. A little something for everyone. Your girl is ready. What's next?
Cool. Great work on that. No, we don't want to be again. Awesome. I'm going to chuck back over to Vinny to talk about why Pride matters.
Yeah, so I mean, going back to the great work that Ramon's doing there, both of those stats applied to me. So I did try and take my life under the age of 25 and was luckily unsuccessful, but also do have mental health challenges. And mainly it is because I couldn't see myself in the community I was growing up with. And why Pride matters, two things that have happened this week in New Zealand and even in Tauranga show why Pride matters. So overnight, the Rainbow Youth and Genderix drop-in centre in Tauranga was destroyed by arson. They're still investigating at the moment. And then, the school in Bethlehem School had a number of students who were threatened for supporting LGBTQIA community in the last week, as well as they've now had to change their charter because they rewrote their charter after the Ministry of Education signed it off. And it states that marriage is only allowed between a man and a woman. And they've now had to change that, otherwise they will have all their Ministry of Education funding removed from them. but it has been ongoing many years or decades of abuse of LGBTQIA people within that school as well. And then 31 people with ties to the white nationalist group were found to be a part of a riot in a pride parade in Idaho. So when you're part of the community, you see these things. When you're maybe a cisgendered heterosexual person, you don't see the things that scare us from being who we are. And that's why pride for us is important. And being visible is important. One of the biggest things I love doing during Pride Month, when I'm over at Sydney and Mardi Gras, or even when I'm here, is the fact that I can hold my husband's hand and walk down the road without having to check who's around me before I show them affection. Because I know that I'm in a safe space. And that's really important for all of us. Even as a, cis gay man who is probably heterosexually, presents as a heterosexual male, I still feel threatened in the community I live in. So, yes. So yes, there is a Give a Little campaign which we will send afterwards for the Rainbow Youth Drop-In Centre. It's raised $17,000 in 5 hours, organised by Chanel, who was on the video just before as well. So why Pride Matters as well? It brings comfort and safety, as I mentioned, raises awareness, it allows people to embrace diversity, and it talks about our history and how we've progressed from where we are to where we get. And it's all about, we aren't all safe until we all feel safe. So with those people, there are people in our community that are not given the voice that they need to, and are not given the support and the legal support that they need to. So we as a community need to keep building them up. That was a lot. So one last video, and then we're going to go into the panel. This is an equality video from Salesforce.
Sometimes you'll walk into a room and you just don't fit in.
It feels like you're an outsider, and it hurts to be an outsider.
Uncomfortable, uneasy, unsure.
There's a lot of fear.
And fear is a consuming emotion. Fear is a distracting emotion.
I just want you to acknowledge that I exist.
I didn't realize I was trans for the longest time.
I was raised by my mother and her partner, and also my father.
I'm unique because I'm half Filipino and half Irish.
My parents migrated from Haiti in 1968. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. My mom was a telephone operator. I'm a Bell baby.
I grew up in South Dakota, and my first exposure to a gay person was Matthew Shepard.
The experience that most women have that a lot will resonate with is they'll say something in a meeting, it won't get acknowledged. Somebody else will say the exact same thing and they'll say, what a brilliant idea. And she's sitting there going, I just said that.
I've been denied a job because of my sexual orientation.
I have a lot of biases and I see the world through a very specific lens. And so I have to really check my own bias.
I have just as much growing and just as much learning as anyone else to do.
I want to be a part of a world where everybody can be the best version of themselves.
Having a diverse culture really is an advantage to building one of the best companies in the world.
It's not just the right thing to do. It's also the smart thing to do.
You need people who can actually bring different perspectives.
You can be trans, you can be gay, you can be black, you can be Muslim.
A lot of people with disabilities have strong problem-solving skills.
Our customers are diverse.
We as leaders, we as trailblazers, we have to think about the next generation.
My generation wants to be able to work in an environment where they're able to be their true selves.
Salesforce, they're trying to learn how to do this thing right.
We're flawed. We have a lot of work to do, but we care about this issue. For equality to be successful, we just have to learn how to be allies.
There's always someone who's in the shadows. There's always someone who's not being included.
You have to bring people up with you.
Making people feel comfortable in their own skin.
And if that weight is taken off me, I'm able to rise above. And it's amazing.
I can bring my whole self to what I'm doing. Be confident and stand in my truth of who I am.
For the very first time in my entire lifetime, I get to bring my authentic self to work.
And if we can just reach enough people, if we can just demonstrate that shared humanity, that we can not just win the conversation and win the day, but win equality for every person in every corner of this country and around the world.
At Salesforce, we're part of a movement
For a more equal
and more diverse future.
We are committed to equal pay for equal work.
Make a difference. Be a trailblazer.
And join us on the path to equality for all.
That was great.
Sometimes you walk into a room and you just...
Not great enough that we need to watch it twice. There we go. Project. You're really good with technology. Yeah. So, it's panelist time. Now, at the bottom, there's a menti.com link. Now, this is for anybody online who would like to ask a question, or in the room if you feel more comfortable doing that as well. There are coders up there as well, so it's 46795741. So we've got 3 fabulous people today that we're going to, what I would like to do is actually ask them their story to start with when they come up, and why they're here today, and how how as long as it's short as they want it to be, how their journey has been there today. We're going to share the mic, so no clamoring too much between us. And then we've got some questions. We'll take the questions from that are coming through, or any in the room, but there's also some additional questions that we have today as well. So I'd like to welcome up Cam Clarkson. His pronouns are he, him. He is the Salesforce product owner here at Spark. Manu Irwin, pronouns are she, they, solution engineer at Salesforce. And our very special fabulous guest today, Ramon Tawake, pronouns are she, her, and director and producer. Probably not a good idea. Sorry, everyone online, a bit too young for Mike.
Welcome to the user group, guys.
Yeah.
It's really great to have you here. I'm just really pleased that you've all chosen to join us.
Do you want to start the proceedings?
Yeah.
Right.
If I look like I'm multitasking, I am. I'm just waiting to see if anyone submits questions online.
Shall I ask a question?
Do you want me to take the question?
I know, I've got it.
Kia ora, ko Cam tōku ingoa. Interesting question on how I got here. Recently returned from Australia after living there for 10 years. Brought myself up in a really fundamentalist Christian church. Not sure if you've seen the news about Arise Church, but I was one of those interns that were working 60-hour weeks unpaid. Yeah, pretty wild. That church, the pastors of that church have now resigned and stood down. So it's a whole other story to talk about, as well as conversion therapy. I also am the chair of Body Positive, which is an organisation that represents people living with HIV in New Zealand. So really great cause to be a part of. At Spark, I've been here for about 6 months. Before being at Spark, I was in the partner space, mainly focusing in the NFP world. That's a bit about me.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Hi, Manu, Irwin, you already know my pronouns, that's right. So, I thought this was a different kind of question, but that's cool.
No, I threw that question on you on purpose.
Okay, cool.
Wow. To test.
Well, in 1974, I was born. Actually, that does loop. I won't go into my whole childhood and so on, but it does actually loop for me the way that I think about my life and journey, and how I've always been me, but I just couldn't be all of me, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
We can talk about that later, there's probably questions. Anyway, so I've always been kind of geeky and techie. I also really like talking to people and solving problems. We were talking about this earlier. I found my way to Salesforce, amazing company, golly, 14 plus years ago. I transparently a couple of times thought about moving on, because actually it was because I was being flown to Australia far too much. Then I would chat to other businesses here in New Zealand and have this kind of metaphorical water splash, and I slap myself in the face, kind of, oh my gosh, what am I thinking? I work with amazing, beautiful people, and I'm surrounded by incredible partners and customers, and just everyone in this whole ecosystem is beautiful, right? So I get out of bed in the morning to solve problems and puzzles. I love working with people. Oh, that's sweet. That's probably far too much.
That was a great start.
Oh, if you can go there.
Ko pangaru papatate maunga, ko whakarapa te awa, ko mamari te waka, ko te rarawa te iwi, ko ngā tūpato te hapu, ko waipuna te marae, ko Ramon te waki aho. Kia ora koutou, whānau. Ngā mihi to Vinny and Ken for inviting me and Spark and Salesforce and this stuff.
Welcome, you're more than welcome anytime you want.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you. I'll be back tomorrow at 8 now. Oh gosh, okay, so I'm a Māori trans woman. I'm very proud to be one, who I am. I was born in Dargaville. Oh God, I'm going to start, aren't I? I was born in Dargaville, which is in the far north, in 1976. I know, close. Yeah, and I grew up in Parirua. I knew from the very get-go that I was different. I just knew it innately. I didn't have the language to articulate what that meant or what that looked like, but I just knew it in my soul, which meant that my upbringing was very traumatic because I was always bucking everybody. Everyone was telling me to rein it in. I was bullied, I was beaten up for being who I was. And I just knew that even though I was enduring that, I knew that I could not hide who I was. I could not. And I was a single-digit kid, if you remember, being super young and being aware of your difference. That was quite traumatic for me. So I discovered my resilience. I discovered all these things and put them into my toolkit. And my toolkit is what keeps me grounded. My toolkit is what keeps me humble. It keeps me focused. And it keeps me really spiritually connected to myself. And I think those things are really important on your journey when you are traveling through this world on your own journey, is to have a toolkit. Really important. Because it really does help your mental health. It really helps you with relationships with yourself and others. It's essential. So I kind of have always been creative since I can remember. I say the silly thing that I flapped out of my mother's vagina with dancing hands, but it's accurate. Like I literally feel like art and expression saved me. If it wasn't for that outlet, I don't know if I would be here, and that's pono, that's true. And so I've always been a creative person, an expressionist, a storyteller, and I guess throughout my life, my storytelling approach has just evolved. I started dancing as a teenager. I was on K-Road in the 90s doing shows. Yeah, that was me. And then I moved into music and, made an album and toured to America and did all kinds of fancy stuff like that. And then Māori Television was born in 2004. And I was offered the role of Takatapui, which is the first Indigenous queer series in the world. And so I was one of 3 presenters, and that was groundbreaking and also a huge awakening for me to be able to embrace my Māoridom and my queerness and my Takatapuiness and my transness in such a public way. And I guess it's 18 years ago, and I've been a director and producer for heaps of stuff. And proud to exist in my skin and be a representation of beauty and brains and courage and strength and resilience and transness and queerness and takatapuiness. And I'm just grateful to be here. And thank you for having me. And that's me. Thanks.
Wow.
That was wow, thank you. No, I love it. No. So I'll start some of the questions off if I haven't got any from the room, which I don't at the moment. We made sure today that we presented each other's pronouns, and a lot of cis heterosexual people don't understand why people have their pronouns. Would someone like to answer as to, Would someone like to answer as to why? Oh no, that's why I was going to answer the question. So firstly,
challenge question.
The person also has to answer what cis means, because people in the room are probably super confused about that.
Yeah.
But also why pronouns are important for people.
Okay.
Do you want to take this? You can.
Well, that's only because I'd rather not, because I need to use
it's online.
the people.
People online.
Okay, I see. Oh, you're so sweet. Well, I had to Google it. Like, I'm being serious. Yeah, literally. Like, I should know, right? I feel like I should know. But then you get used to using language and terminology, and then you realise, actually, am I really saying the right thing? So it's like anybody, right? Even though I sit in this position talking about language and the evolution of identity, it's like I still had to figure it out. Anyway, so I've come up with it. So trans for me is on the other side of, right? So that's the Latin version of trans. And so your gender identity, which is there, it doesn't match the sex you were assigned at birth, right? So I think most of us are familiar with that. And so cis is somebody whose gender identity matches the sex they were born at birth, and that's matches it. So that's kind of what I've come up with.
That's right.
Yeah. So I just think it's so much easier to kind of articulate it when you've got your hands up doing things. But it is more of an alignment. So cis, when your sex at birth matches your gender identity, and trans is on the other side, which is when it does not match.
That was the first part of the question.
What's
the second part was, why are pronouns important?
I mean, everything is important. If somebody tells you, it's about being seen and heard, right, and validated. And I think if somebody says to you, this is who I am and my pronouns are this and that, you listen to them. So everything that people will tell you who they are, they will reveal who they are to you, and you have to respect that and you have to honour it. It's just a human experience. It's not like a magical thing that people have made up. Literally is something that is really important to people. So pronouns matter like anything. When somebody identifies as somebody or anything, then it matters. It all matters.
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So for me, my pronouns are my articulation and representation to myself of who I am and how I identify the different aspects of me. There are so many different aspects. Who's heard of the gender unicorn? Okay, we totally gotta cover that. That's fine, we'll get to it. It's fine. It's cool, it's so cool.
I can pull it up now if you want.
Oh yeah, cool. Actually, yeah, let's do that.
And then you can talk about it now.
And I'll keep going and then we can come back to it. But and so first and foremost, my pronouns are an articulation of myself, and there's complexities to it. For those of you who can see this, this used to be, well, actually, hang on, zoom back. People for decades and hundreds and thousands of years have known about the complexity of gender, right? Every single one of you and us here are unique. We are absolutely unique in how we identify and how we present in the world, in how we, the sex we were assigned at birth. Doctor slapped you on the ass. Not slapping on the ass, the doctor, but anyway. Who you're physically attracted to and who you're emotionally attracted to. And that's such an amazing kind of spider web, radar chart, however you want to visualize it, uniqueness. Does that make sense? Cool. Does everyone kind of identify with your own version of that? Hands up, please, hands up. Yeah, cool. Excellent. Lots of hands up in the room here. Hopefully they're all hands up. And so this is super complex. The challenge we have in society is that for, holy cow, like decades and decades and decades, society and a large part of religion and so on have sought to reduce that to very simple groupings, to make life easier for them, and for conformity. I won't go on too much about that, but anyway. and so, you know, we've ended up with these very, very, you know, binary representations largely associated to, you know, what's down here, as, you know, okay, a man, there's only a man, there's only a woman, male, female, and they are like this because they've got these bits, and a woman is like this because they've got those bits, right? And that's pretty much how society's been for decades and decades. I need someone to tell me to stop going down rabbit holes, otherwise I need to. That's your task, mate. Anyway, and so this is super complex, and so coming back to me, my pronouns, she and they, are a shorthand contraction for she, her, hers, they, them, theirs. Because I personally think about and identify as trans, femme, non-binary. And you might not necessarily know what that kind of means, but fundamentally, trans woman, I am feminine, I have so much femininity in me. I also have masculinity in me. I'm kind of in the middle a little bit. And that's about my identity, if that makes sense. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff, like the way I turn up. You know, I love wearing pink shoes and and rainbows if I can. And then the attracted to stuff we can talk about later, maybe the drinks or something. Anyway, it's fine. And so when I offer you my identity, just respect that. Yeah, exactly. Do you know, it's the same respect that I give to you when you tell me your identity. Yeah. So that kind of, that's totally makes sense. I probably could have just said that, right? Anyway, sorry.
And as it's just male.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I'm excited. I mean, what I was going to add to this was, you know, as this is male, the other importance of pronouns is to show that you're trying to be an ally. So I think it's really important. I have it on email signatures. People are like, why do you have it on your email signature? You're not trans or you're not non-binary. So when I send it to someone that might not be out at work, might be transitioning, they know that if they want, they can be their true authentic self with me. And so it's really important as allies to be like, hey, it's a journey for all of us. I'm going to put my pronouns there because it just starts a conversation.
Can I? Thank you. So I'm pretty outgoing, as you can probably tell. And so when I came out last year, I came out and it was, this is me, I'm being truly me, and here I am in the world. There are so many of my friends who are who don't necessarily have that confidence to be their true authentic selves with you or anyone else just yet, right? They're in it. We're all on journeys in life, finding journeys along the way, and so when wonderful allies say and share and write and introduce in a meeting and use pronouns, like for a trans person like myself, it's a case of, oh, you see me. You see me. You see that there is diversity in gender, and you're probably a safe person. You're probably a safe space than when somebody doesn't at all. So safe spaces.
Very good. So there wasn't a question, but there was not a question, but love your top line.
Oh, yeah.
Which is actually a Salesforce Pride
Do we have any
t-shirt.
of that?
There is some in the back of the room.
So who is it? And I'll post it.
They are bad sizings because I got what I could from Australia, but we have it. The next question is directed at Ramon, but it doesn't have to be exclusive for Ramon. So Ramon, the question is, you mentioned the importance of a toolkit. What is in yours, if you are happy to disclose?
I need to Google it, no, I'm kidding. Well, you know, it's the tools to help you get through hard times in your life. So, growing up young and knowing I was different and bearing the brunt of, you know, bullying and harassment and torment, I had to develop thick skin, but I also had to do a deep dive into my soul and figure out how I can survive this, because a lot of it is really just how do I survive this, right? And so I would often consult myself. I mean, like I was saying before, I was a kid, and when you're a kid burdened by this pressure, this emotional pressure to, you know, to not blow up into pieces, but to hold your shit together, it's not very, very easy at all. And so the toolkit is just things like, you know, coping with depression, or coping with anxiety, or coping with, you know, I have tricks like I go, depression can visit me, like a friend or like an auntie or a family member. You can stay for a few days, but after that you better get. You know, it's like, to me, that's what I have to do in order, because I know it's like, you know, we exist like this, and once I feel myself going down like that, I have to kind of go into my toolkit. My toolkit tells me, you're a visitor in my house, you know, so I need you to leave at a certain time. So things like that. Be comfortable around your anxiety and your depression, because I think the more you understand the things like that, your mental health, the more you're able to recognize how they exist in your world, recognize the triggers, recognize how you go, oh, okay, I'm feeling anxious today. What do I need to do? You know, make your bed, get out of the house, do some exercise, whatever it is that's in your kit that helps you, you need to tap into. So the toolkit really is just a survival kit. It really does allow me to live my truth and express myself and be okay with all the things around me that can sometimes feel unsafe. The toolkit helps me kind of move through all that. I hope that works.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah, of course. So last year was a really big year for me, life-changing actually, and nice one, good tech solution. Not so much kind of background. And I had a lot of insecurity, right? And I was coming to grips with who I have always been and who I'm becoming, and a lot of the time I'd wake up in the morning and go, I really, really want to wear these amazing jeans and these pink shoes, and this super cool rainbow top, right? Like, this makes me feel beautiful and wonderful and authentic. No! I look incredible, just for the audience. Thank you, Joanne. I'll pay you later. And I wanted to wear that, and I would get into my clothes, and then I would get to the door and just almost couldn't get out the door, right? Because I was scared. I was scared of all of the potential worry, the potential, oh my gosh, what's that person going to say when I get on the bus? You know, what's that person going to, etc. You know, just the potential abuse and bringing me down. And what I came to, I am answering the question you took here, is for me a little kind of mantra, which is just go and be in the world. And what that really means for me, still does now actually, is for me the realization that the vast majority of people just want to get through the day. Do you know, if you ever do this, you walk down the street and even if somebody's got a bright top on, you're going to go, oh yeah. And then you keep going to work, to lunch, to the bus, to getting home and so on, right? You know, and so you're very, very focused. I am, and I think the vast majority of people are. And so what I came to realize and really channel in that kind of toolkit nature was just go and be in the world and just go and do it. And I kind of kick myself in the ass out the door, and that let me get out the door and go. And so that's been probably the biggest one for me.
and as someone who's observed you, now you are such a lighter person in who you are, and bright, like you've come alive and are less of that anxiousness because you were bringing that with you without you realising that.
Can I second that and just say, Manu taught me how to build Salesforce right back in 2009, and I just see a lightness and a brightness and this whole authenticness of you that comes out. So.
That actually segues into the question that I have, which isn't written down, but how do we make this place better? So one of the things, and I'm going to ask it in different ways. So I'm going to ask it to you, Cam, around how you're doing that from a Spark perspective. We could probably talk about some of the stuff that we know that you're doing internally from a Salesforce perspective. But I also really, because we're in corporate, would like to know, Ramon, from your point of view, how can organisations authentically not just slap a rainbow logo up for the month of June or the month of February, and do a bit of how do you think as I'm not saying you're an outsider, but as somebody that doesn't have to turn up to a 9 to 5 every day in a corporate and maybe hide ourselves a little bit because we can't be our full self. How do you think that we can be more present for the wider community? Does anybody ready to answer that first as they're thinking? Yeah.
I just have to say first, I'm really lucky to be working at Spark, and it's very evident when I started here in December last year that people before me have worked really hard to get Spark to a place, particularly in the D&I diversity and inclusion space, where we can be enabled to be ourselves at work. And so, while I'm lucky in that sense, there's still so much more work to be done. I help out with Power at Spark, and our group is not that diverse. We do have some amazing women. Part of that usually it's just men, but it's great to have women involved in those groups. But for us here, visibility is key. So just small things like wearing a little rainbow on my lanyard today that I got from Sweat with Pride. Donate to me. I'll send the link later.
Or to me.
No, they're leading the leaderboards in America, so they don't need more money. But it's, I guess, different places have different cultures, but you can also be a culture leader if you want to. Even within my own team, and I'm sure my teammates will attest to this, I'm all about creating the culture that I want to be in within the team, and it starts with just your team. It doesn't have to start with the CEO. It actually is better if it starts grassroots, because people have people power.
Very cool. Actually, I'll touch on something that I heard from one of our senior global execs earlier today, who heads up our equality strategy work that we do across the entire business. And one of the things that she was saying is that to be an ally is a verb, and it's kind of what you were saying as well, Vinny, right? So it's not actually just being able to, you don't get to just wear an ally lanyard without actually doing something. And so that's actually something that globally and then locally we're working closely with that team, is figuring out what we can actually do to be allies and allyship and have. And you can do this in your businesses and your places of work, right? It's figure out what kind of equality initiatives could you put in place in your business that would be meaningful and impactful, like actually make a difference, and not just, we're gonna go march, awesome. But how do we put that into practice? How does it actually drive action and outcome? And Vinny's, we were talking about this a few months ago in terms of the work that we're wanting to do as part of Outforce here at Salesforce, and it's kind of less about the parade and less about the the marketing, and more about actually enabling people in our community who need help. You know, you have this amazing example of, say, I'm kind of revealing the plans. So for like big day out coming up, right? Instead of having a big kind of Salesforce actually sponsor, you know, a trans artist to be in that space and showcase their talent and value and so on, right? And so I kind of burbled on a little bit. There's a
more than just the parade march to us.
Yeah, it's just meaningful work that helps people.
Unfortunately, due to sickness, we were going to be talking about the work that Spark has been doing in this space in particular, and that was, if you haven't already, I suggest Googling Beyond Binary Code. I won't go into too much detail because I won't be able to do it justice, but jump onto the website and have a read. And that came from the idea that the community is generally not in the parades and not there. They're usually somewhere else that they can't get to. Parades are really centralised sort of thing. So where can Spark do some work? And that's where Beyond Binary Code was born. So if you haven't already looked it up, I would suggest watching the video. It's a pretty amazing piece of work that they've done. But yeah, I just wanted to add to that.
Yeah, actually, and one of the bits in that video that really sticks out for me, and you've touched on it, about being, you can't be what you can't see, right? And so there's this really, the whole video is really cool, but there's a section in it which is sort of calling out really just that you go onto a website and you fill in your details, and as a person who doesn't match any of the options in the boxes, you're forcing me to not align with who I am. Do you know? It's a bit like the pronouns again, effectively. And so anyway, yeah, I don't want to come. It's check it out. It's seriously cool.
Yeah, for you, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I work in the storytelling industry, I suppose, and it's kind of really all I've known. And it's interesting because even though I'm visible, you know, we seem to be far more visible now than we ever have been. It's just been such a hard road to get here, and I still feel like we're not seen enough. And I mean, I just was like, you put overall trailblazer up there, and I just went, oh, that's so sweet. Like, it's so nice to be seen for all the years and years and years.
I wanted to.
No, it's this.
This would have been like your own page and a half.
Yeah. I thought about doing your own slide, to be fair.
You should have, really.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm saying is that it's nice to be seen. You know, we have this thing in our industry, he tangata, or just in Māori culture in general, and it's the people, right? And so my work has always been about the people. And so Queer in Here, which is my recent kaupapa, my project, it really is about seeing our community, our history, and the things that are in front of us today through the perspective of a young takatapu rangatahi. Anyway, and it's his first time ever in the community. Like, it's his first time at the big gay out, it's his first time getting an HIV test, his first time doing anything that most of us in the community go, huh? What? You've never done that? Never been to a nightclub? What? Never been to a gay nightclub? And so we thought it was really important and more impactful to tell our stories through somebody who hadn't aligned politically, who wasn't super kind of like knowledgeable about his queerness, his takatapuiness. We thought it was just really important that the audience went along the journey with him. And so we thought it's all about inclusion. And so I think for me in my industry, it's about how, and it's strategy, it is mathematics, it's like, you know, it doesn't just kind of appear and you go, let's do that. It's literally what is going to make our audience feel more included. How are we best going to, even in the community, it's like you tell rangatahi stories, but then the older generation feel left out. So if you tell older generation historical stories, all the young kids feel left out, right? So I'm in between, let's just say it. I'm in between, so I'm going, okay, this is dope, so I know what I need to do. It's like a Māori culture, acknowledge your tūpuna, acknowledge those who've gone before you. the trailblazers who've gone before you, but also to acknowledge the young change makers and change agents who are coming through, who are killing it like Chanel, who've got things to say unapologetically, far more unapologetically than my era. These kids now, they have no filter. They're like, I want change now, and I'm going to go and get it. And I'm like, jeepers, hey.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was like, we want change. But, you know, these kids are just going in, and it's incredible. So, you know, it's like, how do we ensure that all of our needs, the well-being of our community, is catered for? At least, listen, I trust you. There's no way to make everybody in our community happy. It's not even like a joke. It's really, really hard to serve everyone's needs because we're all different. We all have different needs, and we should acknowledge that, right? We can't try to fit everybody into one thing. So from a storytelling perspective, there's a lot of work that goes on behind trying to make everything more inclusive and more diverse. I know, so sorry. And then our presenter was young. We didn't want our presenter to be somebody who had all the knowledge, who knew what they were doing. We wanted our presenter to be just as curious as you, just as curious as other young queer rangatahi who are out in the bush, who don't have access, who don't know what these things are. So we're welcoming, we're trying to include our whānau from the far north, from down south, from who live rurally. And we're also trying to make sure that the families are there with them. So using that as an example, structurally, it's like there's a lot you have to consider. But if you consider it and you jump in and you think about all the factors, it's better than, you know, that's where the work is. So yeah, I mean, it is, you've got to dismantle shit you've got to explode into pieces and build it together, and build it back up, and I think that's what we try to do with Queer in Here. And we're really proud of the work because we feel like it's a great representation of our community. It's inclusive as much as we can make it. And, you know, it's soulful work that hopefully will change lives, save lives. You know, and minds as well.
On that, on changing minds, I do have a question as well. There is a project that you worked on as well called. Oh no, the mic. Oh, it's gone. Hopefully you
no question.
Yeah, no good questions. A project you worked on as well that hasn't been mentioned is Rurangi.
Yeah.
Are you able to briefly talk about?
Can we bring the computer closer then just for
It's the mic up there.
Oh, the mic up there.
It captures the room.
Okay.
Anyway, so you can bring it closer.
Hopefully, can people hear us
Yeah, can you message in the chat?
Charles, can you let us know?
on the line?
Yeah, on the line. Yes, they can hear us.
All right.
Oh yeah, didn't even work in the first place.
Thanks, Pablo.
Cool.
Thank
Take
you,
that off.
team.
I felt like it
You can
is.
use your hands now properly.
Yeah, you can. Like, it's a dangerous thing.
Use our
You never see people's hands in a necklace. Yeah, tell us a little bit about Rurangi. I know I got to the end and I was, well, not the end, but actually a lot of moments throughout it, and I was like rolling my eyes out. So yeah, love to hear what that is and if there's anything new coming up.
Yeah, I think for me, like being at the table is so important, right? So being seen in storytelling world, oh my God, my hands are going for it. In the storytelling realm, you know, you have to be at the table in order to make sure that the stories are authentic and real, right? And there's been a huge shift within the industry for the last 10 years, making sure that there's queer, Māori, wahine, you know, all these the diversity is at the table. And so Rurangi is a really beautiful example of having trans, queer, non-binary people at the table, writers' table, producers, directors, you know, behind the scenes, the head of departments. And it's the first time, you know, really trans and non-binary and queer people have really been uplifted in this industry. And it's a drama and it centers on the lead actor's trans. I play Ali, who's trans, and it's like trans people playing trans roles. It's like, what? Who are we? You know, so there's so much wonderful movement that's happening.
It's on Neon.
It's on Neon.
It's on behind you. I'm showing the websites behind you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and this is his first acting gig. Al's Harrod, who plays Kaz, his very first acting gig. Yeah, he nailed it, and he's just he's such an empathetic and Max Curry is our director. Yes, so there's a lot of wonderful stuff to talk about.
Sorry, Tim.
I think it's me. I think it's you. So definitely watch the movie first. So watch the movie and then the show, or is the show a retelling of the movie?
Well, the series was done first, and then they got some more money to make it into a film. And so I think all they did was just, that's right, all they did was just, I think, shift things around to make it more film than TV series.
So watch the show and then watch the movie. And then
is there a trailer? Is there a trailer we can watch?
Do you want to watch the trailer? Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, cool.
It's seriously amazing.
Thanks, Scott. Sorry, 1 second.
You're doing so well.
We can still see it.
Hang on, I'll go YouTube. This is where you get to all see my amazing search history on YouTube.
Yeah, I would have logged out before doing this.
Why do you get there? What you're talking about language and how different generations speak about people. I learned that you need to accept how the older people talk about things. So
it gets tricky.
Yeah, it's weird. At Christmas, so I was talking to my parents, I was talking about my friends I work with and guys I know, and they're in, it's 2 guys each year, and I just talked to them like it's normal. And Mum didn't realise that the 2 guys were together. And I went, oh, how did you not know? Like, this is like, I thought, well, I don't know, it was just like this, the boyfriends. And she sat there and she went, there's no one normal anymore. And I sat there and I froze and I went, and I was about to rip into her and go, that's not how you talk.
Yeah.
And I stood there silent for a bit, and then she went, they must have hit, so many people must have hidden who they were back in the day. And it was her language. It's not, she's not insulting people by saying they're not normal anymore. That's her language.
Yeah.
So I have to accept that that's how she talks.
And that's the frame of reference that she's coming from, right?
Yeah. So it's not that she's offended by it or she has an issue, she doesn't have a problem at all, but the words she's going to use are going to come across to the younger generation as extremely offensive when it's not. Because these guys could have turned up at my house and she would have invited them in and given them food, drink, whatever.
It's about looking, I guess, when it comes to language, it's about looking at the malice, if there's any malice behind. And as openly queer people, you kind of put on a hat that you're going to be an educator anyway. And so like, you're kind of prepared for that. And I guess whenever someone asks, like, one of these questions that we have here is, what if I misgender someone, or what if I use the wrong pronouns? This same answer kind of applies to that. It's about what's behind you not using that. Is it because you're human and you just had a brain fart, or are you trying to be nasty? Exactly.
I agree. Benefit of the doubt for
100%.
me. It's just assume that they're making a mistake. Unless there's active malice.
I think they're allowed
and
to.
you can tell.
I think you're allowed to make a mistake.
Yeah,
you're not,
totally.
no one's ever going to get everything right all the time, right? So
No, but
you're allowed to make a mistake, but you.
I heard it in a nice way as you know, people's pronouns are like their name. The first couple of times you get someone's name wrong, it's okay. And then for me, I put a lot more power on it. It's like, you know, if you keep on saying someone's wrong pronoun, I believe that you should have the right of, at that point, it's like, if you keep on calling me the wrong name, I'm not going to answer after a while. But I suppose it's different because I'm a cis person, but that's the way I see it myself. Supporting my whānau.
I feel a bit like that at times. I haven't, and thankfully, actually, I've not had terribly many experiences of people getting my pronouns consistently wrong. People are and have made the effort to change and learn. Talking about that scenario, right? I relate a story so when I came out last year, and I sat down with my mum, and I just have to do the math, 1945, she's 70. Can someone do the math? I don't know. She's 72 or something. I think she's. I'm glad someone else did that. And she doesn't have the language and the experience to know, right? And I said, okay, I just have this really big thing, and this is where I've been all my entire life, and here's my journey, and I'm trans. And she went, oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. And I I do. I always love you, and will always love you. what is trans? I was like, is that a little bit like gay? You know, and she just didn't know.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
But it didn't change the beautiful person and human that she is, and her acceptance and love for me. It was just needing me to help her find the language to then learn and evolve. Right?
Yeah, my parents are 74, 75. You're from Zygerville?
Yeah.
They're from Kaikoura.
Okay.
North Dakota.
Right, yeah.
Not a lot of LGBTQ, like not a lot of that community up there. It's like farmers and fishermen.
Well, the thing is,
that people know about.
The thing is,
They
there
do,
is a lot of
because
us. There is a lot of
leave.
us out there. It's just that we're not feeling comfortable to feel visible.
No, because I had this conversation with her as well, because a lot people I went to school with, you know, grew up and went, I'm gay, and did whatever, and left.
Yeah.
And they leave.
They left
and
to the
she
bigger
turned to
cities.
me and she's like, why did they all leave? I'm like, well, prejudice, Mum.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, that's sad. And I'm like,
That's what happens. They migrate to bigger cities.
Mm.
That's where they're seen and supported and have a community. They're
yeah.
a community.
Why would you stay in a home?
Yeah.
400 people there.
Yeah.
I'm just conscious of time.
Sorry.
No, we're
No,
good.
no.
And I'd love to show the trailer for Rudangi.
I think I get it. Like, gender is complicated.
Me, I'm Casno.
And Rick.
We're never exactly girly.
It's me.
I mean, your mum tried.
There's your mum. You tell her.
What I liked about you, for one of the things, you weren't like the other girls. I wasn't one.
Do you know what's happened? Didn't hear any sirens, so I'm guessing your dad didn't have a heart attack.
You didn't.
You know, when you left, I were pretty messed up. I loved you. And I thought this would be weird. It's not.
Aww.
Aww. And with that, I think if we, final thoughts from the three of you? Final thoughts is I mean, I know it's not Pride Month, but it's International Pride Month, which we end up, I suppose the joy is we get 2 months, not one. But if there was one or two things that people could take away today, what would you want it to be?
Being an ally is a verb.
Yeah.
And share yourselves with us and just everyone to enable a more inclusive and diverse world, right?
My thought would only be just listen. There's a lot of power in just listening. It doesn't always have to be backwards and forwards. You know, there's a lot of differing opinions and stuff. But you know, when a friend says to you, "Hey, I'm trans," just listen. Yeah.
You know, be a decent human being, I think.
Yeah, shouldn't even say that, but yes.
Just be a decent human being,
Yes.
and it doesn't change you much. You can just be kind and listen and see people, and when somebody tells you who they are, listen, and don't allow your years and years of shit to influence how you respond to somebody. And I think just be kind, because look, language has evolved, technology has evolved, identities have evolved, like you were saying, everything has evolved, and we have to evolve with humans to keep up to it, right? You see it in your industry, so much stuff is happening. You have to adapt. COVID has taught us that. You have to adapt, otherwise you end up falling down the rabbit hole, you explode too much into many pieces, and you can't fix yourself. People have lost businesses. People have lost their sense of will to exist and live and thrive and strive, right? But you have to find stuff in your toolkit to adapt. And part of that is just giving yourself all the time and love, and then showing others that you have the same thing. And I think it just comes down to being a decent human being.
It's one thing for me that I've got out of tonight is listen to actually hear what's being said, not listen to respond. You know, we're listening to hear and learn and take the lessons and improve, live, strive, survive.
Yeah, you don't even need, you're right, you don't even need to go, oh, but what about, or you could just, I heard you.
Yeah, so it's not about being able to respond, it's just listen to hear what is being said.
Because that's the difference, that changes things. It's like when you are communicating with somebody, I know we're not here to talk about it, but when you are on the phone and if somebody's listening to you, you feel so much more comfortable to say, oh, by the way, I identify as trans. You know, because if they make you feel safe and heard, you're going to tell them, and that's part of, I think, what needs to be implemented more.
And I think it changes the way the words land on you as well.
Yeah.
That you're actually more open to a teaching session on what that means for someone who's going through a journey.
Yeah.
Is this where you're going to start singing Listen by Beyonce from Dreamgirls?
We were?
We
not?
can. How about we do that when they're bringing it aside?
That was the secret agenda.
That was the secret. It's the gay agenda. Yeah.
I want to thank Ramon, Cam, and Manu for your time today, for your beautiful words, and for educating me as well as everyone else here today. So thank you so much, and yeah, really appreciate it. And for those online, I think Cam's going to drink now. So we will have a recording, and we'll work out from a sharing point of view at some stage. Someone did come up with that. But thank you everyone for today. And
I got that email just sent.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much.
Ka kite.
Harera.